Welcome back to another powerful episode of the Service First podcast, where we explore the power of putting a commitment to others first in business and in life. Join us as we sit down with industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and everyday people who are making a positive impact through their commitment to service. Get ready to be inspired, learn from the best, and discover how you too can put service first. Well, yeah, man. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
No problem.
You're the third guest on the Service First podcast. How's that make you feel?
I feel honored.
Yeah. What do you know about the podcast? Have you listened to the other episodes?
I listened to the first one. I don't think the second one has the second one been published yet.
Yeah, I just published it.
Oh shoot, I need to check that one out because that's with Ellie, Nicole, and Brooke, right?
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
It was great.
Nice.
It was cool to just kind of dive into their story a little bit and hear what their experience was like, growing up in the business and, old stories about, growing up in Jackson and Joe and Denise. It was pretty sweet.
I think it's pretty beneficial because I've had multiple people tell me about, we know a lot about Joe, working for him for so long, but I think it's good for other people to know, like, his backstory, things like that, to know the girls. Pretty soon we'll have to do one on you.
Yeah.
Which maybe Marcus. Which is Marcus the producer? What is his title?
Yeah, he's like our version of young Jamie.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. He's still a line cook to me, so he'll always be that.
I think that that's really cool too.
Yep.
I told Marcus this, that like I'm stoked that we're working, with somebody that came is in the company.
Yeah.
And like Marcus loves cooking. He's like, I want he's a film student and very talented and capable of like helping us with the podcast or with YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's like, I don't want to just like trade out my hours as a line cook.
I wouldn't have let him
still do that. I think that's really cool. And hopefully we'll like provide a level of, authenticity and a cool factor that we couldn't do if we were just like outsourcing everything.
Yeah. Somebody that's another company or has been through it.
Well, I think, like to your point, one of the goals with the podcast is that people are, learning about us, learning, where the company culture comes from, starting with Joe and Denise. That's why, I interviewed them first, Nicole, Ellie, Brooke, and then honestly, man, I mean, you're absolutely next on the list in terms of, you and Tracy, really.
Yeah.
And I hope to sit down with her next week in Jackson, but, just hearing your experience, background, learning, how you got to where you are today and how you have, impacted blue collar and how blue collar has impacted your life. So can you just, I guess, give us a little bit of background about, your upbringing, your backstory, how you got involved in restaurants, etc.?
Where do I begin? I think, originally from Phoenix. Father was in the military, 20 years in the Army. Mother's Korean. They met in Korea, and then, they settled back into Phoenix, and so I grew up there. So,
You have siblings?
yeah, I have an older brother, younger sister. But, parents divorced when I was young, and then, lived with my dad growing up, who, really good dude, wasn't really too much of a hard ass or anything. But getting into cooking, the best first memory of me wanting to at least try it out was in high school. I wanted an easy A, so I took a home ec cooking class. So some of the benefits I thought was it's going to be, I think I was a sophomore in high school. But I didn't know that every freshman boy coming in thought it was a good way to meet girls, and so I was in a class full of freshman dudes, which was pretty boring. But our teacher, I think, was pregnant, and so she left, and so we had a substitute teacher for the rest of the year, and I think she was from the Balkans or something, but And so all she used to play for us was Good Eats with Alton Brown. I don't know if you ever seen it.
Mm-mm.
It's a good show. But he was such a good teacher about it and made it very educational and fun that it kind of piqued my interest on,
It was like a TV show.
yeah, it was a TV show. It was on Food Network.
Huh.
So, I thought that was pretty influential. And so I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, pretty unique. I never saw food that way. Whenever my dad would cook, everything would be fairly vanilla and bland. But, that kind of opened my eyes into some of the food aspect of stuff. And then did pretty well at it in just high school classes. So found out I was like, oh, it's not anything too crazy. It's pretty, you can overcomplicate it, but at the end of the day, it's simple.
So you weren't working in a restaurant at that
No.
time, just in
Yeah.
class in high
Yep.
school. Do you remember any of the stuff that like you cooked at the very beginning?
I mean, it was mostly like, cookies and little small things like that. It was just like an hour class. It wasn't anything, unique to do. It was mostly like, oh, this is how we make cookie dough. This is how we do some basic stuff. It wasn't anything extravagant. But the cooking, but Good Eats with Alton Brown was pretty, eye-opening on some of the cool stuff.
That's cool. I
And
wonder
then-
if he's still around.
Yeah, he does. He was like the commentator on that Iron Chef America thing.
Oh, okay, I think
yeah.
I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about.
he's the guy with the glasses, kind of nerdy.
Yeah. I think he has some YouTube content.
Yeah, he has a lot of YouTube. He's pretty influential. That was the first, memory I have of like Food Network and just food itself. And then, so you get to that point in high school where you got to figure out what you want to do. And I remember taking my SATs and being like, yeah, I'm not college material. This,
You and Joe both.
yeah. No, I was just like, all your friends are like, oh, we're going to go to this college or we want to do this. And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't. I didn't know I was going to go into food. I just knew like that's not what I wanted to do. And then back when I graduated 2004, I feel like there was a big boom in, culinary. Like people wanted to be chefs. And so I went to culinary school, Le Cordon Bleu in Scottsdale. And it was about a year-long course. And kind of had some side jobs while going to school out there. So, dishwashing at a restaurant close to the school and things like that. And that's how I got into the culinary world, was doing stuff like that.
So the like dishwashing in the restaurants there, was that like your first exposure to actually working in a restaurant?
Yes.
So you graduated high school.
I mean, if you don't want
went
to count McDonald's when I was in high school, but
You worked at McDonald's when you were in high
Yes.
school. I'd count that.
yeah, well, I count
Did you
that too.
cook?
No.
What'd you do?
Register,
Oh,
drive through, front of the house register.
that's funny.
I fucking hated it. And there's my F-bomb for the day. No, it was kind of cool just because you got to work with different people and, how to greet customers and things like that. But it definitely was, you could see a lot of the corporate structure, but it definitely had a lot of people that had their own influences on how they managed people. And so I saw some good, some bad. There's always a lot of high school kids working, so a lot of camaraderie. But so that was kind of fun.
So you graduate high school, do a year of culinary school, still basically in Phoenix.
Yep.
Then what?
After I graduated, started working for some, I was always taught that when you get into the culinary world, you kind of want to do a lot of variety because your biggest thing is going to be learning and knowledge. So for me, it was always recommended, you want to try and maybe do like a mom and pop thing, something small and something big, because it gives you a lot of exposure to things. So you don't want to like centralize yourself to just one thing. And bounce around some jobs and I ended up working for this resort company. So they manage like golf courses and hotels and things like that. And so that kind of gave me a good corporate structure of, food costs, managing, scheduling, things like that. And so I worked for a few really, experienced chefs that taught me a lot about business and, how to operate, how to lead, how to manage, and, things like that.
Does anybody stand out or any experiences stand out from that time of your life as far as like, a mentor or somebody that was like giving you guidance? Like you said that, you were told that you want to get this, broad spectrum exposure to like a mom and pop and a corporate and a small restaurant and a big restaurant and a resort and a golf course. Like, Yeah, where were you getting that guidance from?
He was when I first started working for that company. He was the sous chef. His name was Nicholas Henry. And he taught me.
Shout out to Nick Henry.
Yeah, but he's probably like the most influential. Took me under his wing because I was 18, 19-year-old kid, and he really showed me the ropes. The humor in working in a kitchen, the hard work, the dedication, the hours you have to put into it, and most of the time it is thankless. Like most of the time it's only negative stuff you hear when oh, this was cooked incorrectly or this tasted like shit. And but he taught me about like having fun and working hard and things like that. And then we had a corporate chef that worked at one of the resorts that we ended up working with, and he taught me a lot about the business side of it. And he taught me the biggest thing was it's fun to do all this fancy stuff, it's fun to do all this creative stuff, but you're not making money, you ain't gonna have no job. So he had a very good way of explaining it in layman terms so that I think a 21-year-old kid could understand it.
What was the difference between those two people, like a sous chef and a corporate chef, at that time in your life? Like, how were you working alongside either one of them? And like,
yeah, so I was working a lot with Nick. Like I said, he was he went from sous chef to an executive chef, and his boss was Chef Gregory, and he managed like the main resort one in Phoenix, and so we ended up transferring over there after one of their properties sold, and we did work directly for him. But he was a very hands-on chef. Like he didn't like being in the office. He liked being with the people on the line, and so he was very good at like jumping in and kind of helping. Then he explained
like the head dude.
This is like head dude. So I think he was like the Western corporate chef for the company and stuff. So he traveled a lot, but whenever he was in town, he was always there
on the line.
Yep. And he always used a good way because he always wanted to be teaching people because he could use those people to put at different resorts and restaurants to start managing the way he wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah. And then he ended up taking, I think he moved East Coast. He got either a different assignment or he wanted to get closer to home. So he ended up leaving. And then kind of after that, I think that's when the economy kind of crashed. I can't remember what year. Was it 2008, 2007, around that time? And so, golf courses, resorts, all that stuff were taking hits. And then, from there I did some traveling, which
so
is
like you got laid off?
No, I didn't get laid off. They usually give you the option of, hey, do you want to like go travel into one of our other, resorts and stuff like that. And so I got to go to some different places.
Where'd you go?
Got to go to North Carolina, Oak Island, a little south of, what is that? Where that college is? I can't remember the town either way, but it was a fun college town. That's my first time actually like getting out of Arizona and traveling and kind of being on my own. So learned a lot, able to assimilate and just jump right into it.
And you were like moved around in your capacity as a line cook,
Yep.
or like were you getting into managerial positions? Or
Not really managerial. It's more of just having that experience, but just being able to like plug and play because they were very seasonal, and so they just needed more help. And room and board were paid for, so it was just a good way of making extra money.
So you would like kind of follow the seasons
Yep.
from go be in North Carolina
Yep.
at peak season,
Yep.
then go somewhere else.
Yeah, and then so Nick got the opportunity to be an executive chef at some destination golf course in Nebraska, which is pretty
I didn't
surprising.
even know that
Yeah.
was a thing.
Oh yeah. Apparently, I think it's the northwestern part is very sandhilly, which is supposed to replicate the sandhills of Scotland, which is where I guess golf started or something.
Yep.
But so he was like, "Hey, I want you to come and be, my sous chef." I was like, "All right, great." So went out there, didn't know anything about it. I should have did my research.
So this is the same dude you worked with in
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Yeah. Like my mentor, like that's probably the most influential guy, but didn't do any research. And I get out there, and it's when they say destination, it's destination. There's a 17-mile one-lane road into this place. It's very high end, like very expensive people. It's like a Jack Nicklaus, design course. They had a lot of celebrities out there, things like that. And it was a good way to make money. It gave us a lot of freedom to experiment with food. It was one of the places that didn't have any food costs. It was just like make whatever you guys want for this clientele because they're paying a lot of money to stay here and golf here. And so did that for a summer and was like, well, that sucked. And just being
Really,
so,
that seems like it would be like a chef's dream. Like no budget, no food costs. Don't worry about it. Just make whatever you want to
it
do.
was just so isolated, you know,
Oh,
like,
so just like the
yeah,
lifestyle
just the
stuff.
lifestyle. Like the
Okay.
freedom to do whatever we wanted was fun. We got to experiment with, different steaks, different desserts,
Hmm.
different, whatever we wanted to, but it was just so isolated. It was pretty rough.
So for like the cooking experience, it
Yeah,
was
cooking experience
good,
was
but
great, but just
but
like the whole, well, I got nothing to do. I might as well just work, and so maybe
right.
that's where this whole insane work ethic started. Was because like, well, the nearest bar is 17 miles away. I might as well just stay and work.
So was yeah, is that like had you always been that way? I mean, for anybody that's listening and doesn't know this already, like your work ethic and the hours you put in is like unreal. It has been as long as I've known you. But when do you like looking back? Do you remember like where that started?
I think it started once I started leaving Phoenix. Being in Phoenix, I grew up with my core group of best friends, and so when I was working, we was just hanging out and partying what normal 18 to 20-year-old kids do. And so it wasn't until I actually like left Phoenix where I felt like I kind of developed. I got a talent for this. Working in restaurants, working in kitchens, to where I was like, might as well put a lot of time and effort into it. Because yeah, I used to take standard 2 days off. Once I was out of work, I'm out of work. I don't need to worry about anything. It was time to have fun.
Was your mentor Nick that way? Was he like
He
super
was
hard
very
charger?
strong and like worked hard and worked a lot. Yeah, so I could maybe like develop that from him too.
Hmm. Was it like expected of you, or was it like
Yeah, I mean, it was, hey, this job's thankless. Like you're gonna work long days. You're gonna work on holidays. Um, yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, it's kind of weird if you don't work a lot in that
right?
business or work multiple jobs and do
Hmm.
all that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for most people, they'd look at that and be like, "No thanks,"
Yeah,
you know, like, why'd you stay?
yeah.
Like, why'd you keep doing it?
Um, well, that's a good question. I think it's because I think it was just something I felt like I was good at. You know, I can't dance like Justin Timberlake. I can't sing like Usher. So I was like, well, I'm not a good actor, so I might as well,
Cook.
do what I'm good at. And I think if I really would have struggled at it, I would have been maybe I need to find something else. But
Hmm.
I think I went to school for this. I'm in it. Like, you know, might as well get good at it.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I don't know what you were making at that time, but I mean,
I think
just
my
I
first
know
job I
when I
started off
first
at like
started.
it was like nine something an hour as a
Yeah.
job, just because it was back in the day. It's Phoenix. There's plenty of people. It wasn't like a high demanding job.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So you end up in Nebraska,
Yep.
cooking at this remote
Yep.
golf course. You're working with that guy Nick
Yep.
at the time. And this is like 08, 09, something like that,
I'd say
maybe.
that oh 08, oh 09, maybe 2010 around that. It's somewhere in that time frame. So I work summer and then go back to Phoenix in the fall, and I'm working at for a couple different guys. One of my old chefs. I work at the Phoenix Coyotes hockey arena, cooking for like the suites. It was a huge operation, like 20 people cooking for the suites and the players and stuff like that. And my other part-time job was cooking at there was like an Arizona Broadway theater, which is pretty weird.
Hmm.
It was just people and they're like, oh, you could work here because trying to figure out what direction, what I wanted to do, where do I want to work? Do I want to stick with corporate places? Do I want to go high end? Things like that. And next summer comes around, but the resort place sold to some guys from Jackson,
Hmm.
and so I was
The
already
one
out.
in Nebraska?
Yeah, so I'm already out of the company, and so I guess some of the people that worked there were like, yeah, you should bring him back, and so they made me an offer. It's good money. I go back there,
Hmm.
and people I've never met before, people different. But I was like, yeah, it's gonna be a good way to save some money, work on some more culinary stuff. Was
Was that guy Nick with
no,
you still?
no. I think he transferred. I think to somewhere in Washington.
So he stayed with that with
Yeah,
the
he stayed with the
previous
company and things
management
like that.
company.
And so, I go there as much as I didn't, like that lifestyle, but I met a lot of good people. There are a lot of ranchers out there. Definition of middle America. I learned the difference between a rancher and a farmer. Don't call ranchers
Yeah,
farmers. Completely
God
different. Didn't
forbid.
know that. Always grew up as a city slicker. And so, but it was kind of, yes, the isolation kind of sucked, but, meeting a lot of new people was pretty, fun.
Yeah.
But, so it was a group of guys from Jackson that owned it, and they brought in their own, chef. He worked in Jackson. His name was Michael Gallivan. And so, worked for some for him, learned some stuff, but, he offered me, he said he was going to get into consulting back in Jackson. And I'm like, Wyoming? Like,
Right.
where the hell is that on the fucking map? Like, because, my perception as being from Arizona is Wyoming. It's fucking rocks. Like, what the hell is in Wyoming?
Rocks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a geography major, but, and so he's like, no, there's like a place, like you go to Yellowstone. I was like, oh, I remember going to Yellowstone as a kid. And he's like, no, it's really beautiful. There's very greenery. There's a lot of snowing. I was like, I ain't never seen snow, bro. So how am I going to do? And he talked me into it. And, you looked at it as a challenge. Like, hey, I've never lived in a mountain city. Going to be on my own again. And can really, run my own restaurant and go that route. So, brought me up there. So I left right after that, went back to Phoenix for a little bit, for like a month, and then I moved up there to Jackson, Wyoming, which was an experience. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I'm pretty sure I passed through Jackson when I was a kid because my dad liked taking us on these long-ass 2-week drive
Family road
around the
trips.
freaking Western United States
Those are the best.
vacations. It was fun. Never, he used to try to take us camping a lot and fishing, which I never caught a fish. I'm not much of an outdoorsy kind of guy, So yeah, I remember like as a kid passing through Jackson, and I get there and it's a smaller town. And I think I got there in October, so it was definitely very quiet. Started getting cold. So I worked for that restaurant for probably 8 months to a year, I feel like, before they sold it, the owner, or went into business with Joe. And so that's how I started in blue collar.
And so basically, Michael Gallivan offered you like the head chef
Yep.
job at that restaurant, Giovanni's.
Yep.
And then you get into it, and less than a year later or something, it's like
Yeah, well,
changing hands.
Giovanni's didn't really have that great a reputation. And it was pretty eye-opening to me on how much I didn't know about restaurant, like the economics of restaurants, because it was struggling. We were working a lot, and we were getting by, but it wasn't really making money because it was so seasonal that, in the summer, anybody could make money in
Yeah.
Jackson. Just open your doors and people would come. But it was the off season where, we really didn't have, labor targets and things like that. It was just like, hey, how many people I need? We need a lot of people just to help because we were making, pasta from scratch. So everything was from scratch, and I could have probably simplified things, but wasn't really getting a lot of education. And so I was kind of left to my own devices, and, definitely could have done a lot of things better. But it was definitely a learning experience on what it takes to operate your own restaurant as a leader, as a manager, things like that.
So then the restaurant changes hands, and Joe and Denise get involved. We'll talk about, you and I
Yep.
first meet there, not shortly thereafter.
Yep.
But like, what was your expectation? Like, because you haven't even been in Jackson that long, and now the restaurant that you went there to run is now changing hands
Yep.
again. Like, are you just thinking to yourself, well, I guess I'll just go back to Phoenix, or were you
I-
gonna stick it out, or what?
I thought it'd be a good opportunity to, try it out, just because I've had I knew a couple people that worked for Joe, and there was a line cook that was working for me, Noe, and one of our servers, his name's Eric. His girlfriend at the time was working at Mary Piglet, so they all knew who Joe Rice was. Like, I remember, I was, I remember a week before they kind of told me what they were gonna do, like get into business with Joe. I remember Eric coming back and telling us like, "Hey, like Joe Rice is out there," and I was like, "Who the fuck is Joe Rice?" Like, I was like, "Who's that?" Oh, he's the guy that owns Sidewinders, Mary Piglets, and Dolce, I think was the other place at the time. And
And
I was like,
Ignite.
yeah, I was like, okay, like cool. Like I didn't even go, I didn't know if I was supposed to go say hi to him or anything like that. And then a week later they're like, oh, we're gonna go into business with Joe. We're gonna partner with him. I was like, well, this makes a lot more sense. And yeah, so I remember meeting him, Nicole, and Denise, and we are kind of taking a look around, and I had no idea what to expect, but it was like, it's they say a lot of good things about him, and so I'm gonna stick it out for a while, try to save some money, and then I'll figure out what I want to do. So a lot of my ideals at that time in my early to mid 20s was, I just want to save up some money. I remember living in Jackson. The first year I was there was definitely a lot of you know, partying because there's not much to do when it's cold as shit at night. And so, but it's kind of outgrowing that because it's very transient too. So it's hard to keep like a core group of friends because people would move in and people would move out. And so I figured I'll give it a try. Like I didn't know what to expect.
What was your first impression, like, once that transition started taking place and Joe and Denise started actually getting in, hands-on with the restaurant?
Denise is very sweet and nice. I think Nicole just moved back from college and with her, I think, boyfriend and fiance and then husband. And so they're the first ones to meet. Joe was very upfront and like straightforward. Like that was like, oh, I respect that. Like he just like reminded me of chefs I work for, where it was just very straightforward. It's not, sugarcoating anything and things like that. But the owner at the time that I worked for, Mr. Knobloch, he said that Joe said, yeah, he spoke very highly of you. No, he spoke very highly of you, and so if you're gonna be here and run the kitchen and things like that. And so we had to do a lot of construction to change the lot for a few months, 2 months I think it was. And then I remember meeting you and went to Washington for that pizza oven thing. And my favorite memory of Blaine when I first met him was, I didn't know these people that well. It was Denise. No, it was Denise, Joe. No, it was Joe.
Denise
No,
was
yeah,
with
it was
us.
Joe, Nicole,
Cool.
Tyler, you, and me and Chef Michael Burke at the time that went there. So I didn't really know these people that well, and I didn't know. I remember first we were at a restaurant and Blaine's like, "Hey, does anybody want to get a beer?" I was like, "Fuck yeah, thank God!" Like I need one because I didn't like flying on planes at the time and traveling. And I didn't know anybody. And I was like, almost felt like a little over, shoulders over your skis or whatever that saying goes. I was just like, I am not a fit in here. But after getting to know them, they are very welcoming and very open. So it wasn't like I ever felt not welcomed. It was just whole new group, whole new experience. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah. It was almost exactly 10 years ago.
Good God.
You know that?
I was trying to do the math. I was like, have I been 9? Have I been 10? It's been...
That was spring of 2013.
Shit. That is a while.
Because I graduated college in 2012, worked at Chick-fil-A, and then I made that trip after,
Shit.
towards the end of my time at Chick-fil-A. So.
But yeah, so that's how I started. Yep, then we opened Pizza Antica, which then turned to Pizza Artisan, and then, yep, that's how I started working for the company.
Yeah, and then you spent a number of years running the kitchen at that restaurant.
Yep, I was 3 to 4 years. I'm trying to think how long.
Maybe 3 years.
Yeah.
No, yeah, 4.
I think it was about 4 years.
4 years, because then
Yep.
you moved up here in 17.
Yep.
Yeah, so I guess flashback to, or fast forward through those 4 years. Like, what are your takeaways? What's your lifestyle like? Are you enjoying it? You're working a ton. You're living above the restaurant.
Yeah. So, Jackson was a very expensive place to live, and I had a very good deal with, Mr. Nalbaco in the building. And so I had a really, cheap rent, and it was right above. It was pretty cool opening a new restaurant, seeing that experience. I've never done that before. Going through all the little things like the menus and the placement of everything and the construction and hiring everybody and training. So that was pretty cool and fun. Working for like a small family business thing was pretty cool. They were kind of growing. I remember at that time they were just helping take over Bubba's. I think they were in the talks about changing Dolce at the time. I don't remember Dolce being open that long. They were changing it to Liberty Burger. I think they were also in the process of changing Ignite to Noodle. So there was a lot of growth and a lot of change going on, which was kind of cool. But I was definitely very isolated on Artisan just because we were like further away from everybody. But it was kind of cool working for, multiple concepts, multiple things. And, Joe was obviously very successful in doing it. So, trying to learn as much from him was very impactful.
Yeah. What did that relationship? I mean, how did that relationship evolve from, first meeting Joe and what you said about him when you first
Yeah.
met him, being super straightforward and
Yeah.
everything, through 4 years of you being, the head guy in one of his restaurant kitchens.
It was very good, like I say, it was very straightforward. And so, believe it or not, I was, and probably still am, a very moody person to where, if I'm having a good day or if I'm just in a pissy ass mood, which hopefully I've improved on. But he would have no problem just walking in and calling me out on it. And definitely made a difference on, it's not that bad. Like, why are you so upset? Like I said, I think I just respected his, him being a Marine, military. Just my dad was in the Army, and so they were just very straightforward dudes about things like that. So,
Were you involved in any of the other restaurants at that time, or were you pretty much just focused on?
just focused at Artisan. I believe I started helping with some catering stuff whenever they needed, because I think they were trying to get like the blue collar catering company going, so I'd help with stuff like that. But for the
Oh
most
yeah.
part, I never worked at any of the restaurants until towards the end of the Artisan days, because you were already gone. I think Jackson was already open, or Bozeman was already open, and I had long talks with Joe just because, I mean, truth be told, there was a lot of times that, I was like, I don't think Jackson's for me. I kind of want to go back to, the big city. It's just so small. I've done it for a few years now. Like, I just don't want to be around. And he asked me point blank, like, what do you want? I was like, honestly, financial security. Just being able to be comfortable and not just be paycheck to paycheck and things like that. And he was a man of his word. He kept his promise. He said, you keep in the company, you're going to grow. I'm going to take care of you and all that stuff. So,
Yeah. I mean, because at that time, the company was a lot different.
Yep.
And
It's amazing
to
looking
Joe
back
and
at it.
Denise's credit, I mean, the money wasn't
No.
that great,
Yep.
but they were, able to kind of communicate a vision
Yep.
to people like me and you about, hey, if we, can work together and accomplish these things,
Yep.
like you'll benefit from it. You'll get, be taken care of. And
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely been the case,
Yep.
I know, in my life and for you as
Yep.
well.
Yeah, I just remember when they were talking about, because I think I can't remember the original idea when they were talking about going to Montana. I was like, well, what the fuck is in Montana too? Like, just guys keep, when you guys gonna open up in Vegas so I can go there?
Yeah. I mean, the first meeting that I remember having with Mike and Elena, developers here in Bozeman, was at Pizza Artisan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where I met him for the first
Nice.
time. We had dinner there or something. So you kind of already like planted the seed with Joe, like, hey, I don't know if I really
Yep.
want to stay in Jackson.
Yep.
You're already thinking that, kind of like maybe thinking about going, back to Phoenix or Vegas or something.
Phoenix,
like that.
Vegas, or San Diego were the three spots. So I was like, I kind of just want to go back to a city. I kind of got to go somewhere warm. And so, and then I remember it was about a year before, I think it was 2016, when there was talks about like you and Ellie are going to Bozeman, Montana, and he asked me if I was interested, and I was like, no, like I'm either, because I think I already had that mindset of like I'm probably going to be leaving in the next year or two, and And then we get closer. He asked me again. He's like, "Hey, before I hire somebody else, are you interested?" And I was like, "No." I just didn't think of to my own like narrow-mindedness. I was like, I don't want to work for like at Sidewinders. I was like, yeah, I just it's not my worked at mostly Italian places. I've done steakhouse and stuff like that. So I just didn't know Sidewinders well enough to be like, yeah, I just don't want to make American grill food or whatever.
Like you just didn't want to be the guy like flipping burgers.
Essentially, yeah. Like not to like downplay people that do that, but I was like,
yeah.
I'd want to just keep growing culinarily and do stuff like that. And he made me a good offer. And so he's like, hey, I'm selling the building. You're either gonna go work at
artisan.
Yeah, you're either gonna work at Noodle Kitchen, or you're gonna go to Jackson, or you're gonna go to Bozeman and work at Sideburn. It's like, well, all right, sounds good. So, and it was December of 2013.
No, 17.
2017, yeah. And so I come up here, and that's how I ended up in Bozeman.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, obviously, we could spend all day talking about. I mean, I feel like that's where you and I really started getting close and working together hand in hand, trying to, figure everything out. But really, I mean, like, it's funny to hear you talk about how, like, you weren't really that excited about working at Sidewinders because of, like, the culinary aspect. And now I feel like your mindset and, like, your priorities are not at all based off of, like, oh, well, what cuisine am I cooking or anything like that.
No, I think it's just that, younger... I was my mid-20s about, oh no, I want to, make fancy things and, be really creative and things like that. And I didn't think I was going to have any creativeness. And, you just heard how busy it was when we were in Jackson. You just hear the stories of, yeah, they're insanely busy and they're, have a lot of turnover and they're just, it's just a lot of work up there. And I was like, well, this doesn't sound that exciting. Like, why would I want to go throw myself into that? And Judge had a good way of talking me into it. And, I was really nervous, just with all the situations going around and,
like because of our reputation.
Not the reputation, but just, hearing like, yeah, they had to fire their kitchen manager and and, the volume's insane. I was like, all right, well,
it's an intimidating thing to like walk into.
Yeah. And so, I just remember getting there and just observing a lot the first couple weeks and talking to people. And they had a lot of good people, but they just didn't have that one person that was there to be in, day out, hold them accountable, help build them up and point them in the right direction.
So how the hell did we get from there to where we are today? Like, I mean, you changed a lot over that time. And I think that there's a lot of, key people on our team that have changed and, adapted to the way we operate today. Like, how did that occur? Like, I guess what stands out to you?
It was a challenge, and I think I just realized when I came up here it's go time. It's it's a big challenge, and I think I realized like, oh, I am built for this kind of like this challenge. Like, it's gonna be a lot of work, but there's a lot of potential. It's it's a beautiful building. There's a lot of great people, and I think I just realized like something about me is I just hate fucking losing. And so I feel like, when I first got there, it wasn't as chaotic as I think it was when you guys, that first few months you guys opened. There's a lot of things that smoothed out. But there was just like a bunch of chickens running around with their heads cut off with no sense of direction or no vision, no goal. It was just, we show up, we do our things, we leave. There was no excitement. Everybody was, I wouldn't say like they were unhappy, but they just seemed like drones. Nobody was like excited to grow. Nobody was excited to learn. Nobody was excited to do all that, fun stuff. So
from like a culinary perspective, a cook's perspective, how did you end up accomplishing that? Like, how did you get these people, the ones that stuck around, like, how'd you get them excited about what they're doing, the opportunity to grow, the opportunity to learn and stuff?
That's a good question. I think
we still have a lot of great people that were around at that time. And then, they adapted. and over time like helped establish the culture into what it is today?
Man, I don't know. I think it was. That's a good question. That's hard to think off the top of my head how. I think just trying to relate to them too, because I remember coming up here. It was front of the house was dialed. They had a lot of really good managers, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of really good staff. It was almost like the back house was the weak point holding everybody back because people couldn't cook burgers correctly. People were constantly running out of stuff. And so I think it was just more, you know, getting to be successful and feeling good about not just coming to work and being miserable, but having fun and doing a good job to almost where like we're excited to come because we're keeping up, we're pushing the pace, we're putting things out faster, everything's looking better, we're not putting out incorrect burger temps or
Mm-hmm.
sloppy stuff. It was more just I don't know if it was like a part professionalism thing of you know I didn't come up here just to be miserable and lose and
Mm-hmm.
get our asses kicked. Like I came here to do a great job, and you guys can either help me get that way or one story I remember was it was like the first weekend I worked, and people were scheduled at 8 o'clock, and they come like I'm there, like I'm just like it's go time, and they start trickling in, and I asked one of the girls who shall name nameless, Janessa, why is everybody late? And she's like, well, it says 8 o'clock, but that really more means like 8:15, 8:30. And I was like, bullshit. We're gonna see how long that lasts. And so it was just little things like that about the importance of, hey, I need you guys to be on time. Otherwise, I'm doing your guys' work. Which then case, what the bleep do I need you guys here
Yeah.
so early? And so you guys need to start showing up on time, or I'll get somebody else to do it.
That's awesome, man. I mean, and honestly, I mean, thinking back on that, that was a huge step up, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, it seems like that must have been by far the biggest undertaking in leadership to like up to that point in your
Well, I
career
think
or
about
in
something
your
that I
life.
remember. It was like the first shift I worked, and I sat down with you and Joe, and you just made the great point. It's like they just need a leader. They just need somebody that's going to like. I just never forget. They just need a leader, and that was like the awakening me of like, oh, like yes, it's busy. Yes, it's loud. Yes, there's a lot of shit going on, but and they just need somebody to help point them in the right. And there were a lot of talented people there that stepped up and helped me a lot in the beginning.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, maybe we had some of the right team players on the
yep,
team, but without that leadership and
yep,
pointing everybody in the same direction, I think that's one of the things that you and I have talked a lot about over the years, and really the end goal and the impact that we're trying to make through effective leadership is just putting everybody's efforts towards a common
yep.
goal, right? And
Well,
that's what you were able to do. But like the mechanisms of doing that in a busy restaurant kitchen like Sidewinders is like it's a proving grounds in a way. And then what I want to get to is like how that has impacted or guided you to where you're at today, and how maybe you're still implementing some of those same types of practices.
I remember one of the first instances was it was just like a self pride thing. Maybe it's my ego, but I remember the first night I closed and they were like, well, we can't leave yet. The front house manager has to check us out. And I was like, you guys have to have a front house manager check you guys out? Like, you guys really must have fucked some shit up to where we got to wait for the front house manager to come up here and make sure you guys did what you guys are supposed to be doing. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to be here. We're going to do what we need to do. We don't need a babysitter. You guys need to fucking, like, it's not that hard, Is it long? Yes. Is it hot? Yes. Is it a pain in the ass? Yes. But I don't need a babysitter to tell me what I need to do or
Hmm.
not do.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that was exactly what we needed at that time,
Yeah.
because we didn't have anybody back, leading those people in the
Yeah.
kitchen. That, was what we just had this conversation earlier this morning. But like, as a leader, you've got to be willing to hold people
Yep.
accountable. And if they are unwilling to cope or adapt to what your expectations are, then you say, I don't need you on the team then,
Yep.
because at that point, you're just holding us back. And
Yep.
then the leader's responsibility, unique compared to everybody else, is that then you have to step in and do their job
Yeah.
until you can, build up the capacity on the team to do things the right way. And
Yep.
like, that's that's what like selfless leadership's about. That's what lead by example is about, is that, yes, ideally I'm, motivating others to get the job done, but if they're not willing, then that lands on me. It's
Yeah.
like, taking true full ownership of the situation.
It took a little while, but I remember I was doing a lot of opening and closing just because, trying to build those habits for people of how to properly open, how to properly close. And I can't remember how long it took, maybe a month, maybe 2 months, but I'll never forget when Brandon was like, hey, we've got this. You don't have to stay. Like, I got you. Like, I'll make sure everything gets done and things like that. And that meant a lot because I was like, oh, I don't have to stay here till like 11:30 at night now. Like, I can
Yeah.
leave at 10 because people started stepping up, and that kind of helped other people step up to, the Joels of the world, the, you know, little angry Taylor Wilkinson, they stepped up and we started developing systems. All right, like this person's like the lead closer. You guys can't leave because it was pretty free for all. Like, hey, I did my station, I'm leaving. It's like, no, like you're gonna go help Dish, or you're gonna help this person over here. And so that's when we kind of like, okay, you're the lead closer. Like you're gonna make sure everything's done, so I don't have to stay. And just followed up with them to make sure everything went. If there was something wrong, then it's like, all right, now they got to deal with me.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's super powerful because all they really needed was somebody to show them the
Yep.
way.
Yeah.
It was like we have, Brandon was already there.
Yep.
Joel was already there.
We had Nestor,
Yeah, I mean, we had the
Adam
some
Hall,
really great
Janessa,
people.
Joel was there.
They just didn't have anybody that was setting the right example.
Yep.
And I think that's what, leading by example is about. And then you see the impact of what that can do
Garrett
for
was there.
others,
Yep.
right? And then they're able to like respond to that. And I mean, I love that story of, Brandon stepping up
Yep.
and saying, we got this. I mean, that's like your biggest goal
Yep.
as a leader coming into a difficult situation like that, is that you develop others into, and basically you're earning their loyalty, you're earning their trust, and you're able to start steering people in the same direction.
Yep.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of on that topic, like how have you seen that development occur, and like the trajectory that some of our key people are on, or, the people that you've sort of mentored now, looking back to, your background and having these mentors in your life that maybe taught you some important things and started steering you in the right direction. Like, what are you seeing now with the team that you're kind of providing that guidance to? How have you seen our people develop in a way that, is it similar to the trajectory that you were on in your development
Yep.
course, or, how have you evolved as a leader and then passing that stuff on to people who are now really performing at a high level and leading their own teams?
I think it's, finding that system, but, we use sports as a good analogy, right? And so, every sports organization has, from top to bottom, almost like the military, where everything trickles down. And if everyone's on the same page and the same thing, and it's just how you develop more, because look at the NFL. Coaches come and go, but the only way it works is they're able to promote from within or outside hire of somebody that has the same viewpoints as them. And so I think one thing we've done a really good job is identifying those people that want to learn, that want to grow, that seem interested in why are we doing it this way. The why is, I think, very important. And finding those people, like someone like Anna, for example. She started as a dishwasher for like a while, and then she moved to the line and she really excelled, but she really showed interest in, wanting to do more. And so it's identifying those people that want to grow, that want to do more, and then feeding them. It's not just ignoring them or like not giving a shit about it. It's how can I keep this person interested in growing and motivated when, things like that, I
So
guess.
you're looking for that characteristic to be kind of an intrinsic part of their personality and who they are, rather than like trying to pull it out of them.
Yeah.
Or like,
Yeah, because I
develop
don't
that.
think you can make somebody do something they don't want to do. It's somebody that wants to do it. And we've had some people that really showed interest and they do well, and some people keep doing well and some people fade out. Like we've had plenty of examples of the people that didn't work out and some people that did. And so
I think that element of like what you said, like you can't teach people,
what they don't want to know.
how to like want that for themselves.
Yep.
Like I think that really boils down to like initiative.
Yep. That's a big initiative. Like,
It's like that's probably the one thing that we really can't. I'm sure there's other things that
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of, but like, I think that's one of the most important
Yeah.
qualities in a team member that wants
Yeah.
that, really wants more out of their life or out of their job or whatever, is like
Yeah.
you have to have that self
Motivation.
guided, self
Yeah.
motivated type of mentality where you're just like, yeah, I don't need somebody else to tell me to do things better,
Yeah.
or to want to do things better. Maybe I need somebody to tell me the how,
Yeah.
and like, give me the tools, but you can't light that fire within
No,
somebody.
it's the people that are willing to come in early and the people that are willing to stay late. That's like the biggest indicator of people that want to help and learn and grow. I feel like, looking at those individuals that are willing to like sacrifice their time and, yeah, I could wait a couple hours to come to work, or I can come in and help, or I can come in and do this special, or I can come in and, put my time into it because I want to do it.
So that was like a functional indicator to you with team members, like, oh, that
Yep.
this is a person that's coming in 10 minutes before they're scheduled, or
Yep.
30, whatever, or willing to stay late, or willing to work a double or whatever.
Yep.
Like, that was, maybe looking back on it, those are the indicators to you of, okay, this is somebody who's like worth investing
Who's
in.
bought in. They want to do this because they don't want, the rest of the team to work shorthanded. We don't, it's that team mentality of like, I'm coming in to help. I'm not, it's people that are willing, like, okay, they only have 3 closers tonight. Like, I'll stay and close to make sure we have enough people. It's, oh, you guys are short during that thing. Like, I'll come in and help and things like that.
That's awesome. Because I think a lot of times, yeah, as leaders, managers, whatever, we're struggling to maybe identify who those people are, because a lot of people say they want it,
Yeah.
right? But then, you invest in them, you put time and energy into
Yep.
them, and then 6 months down the road, they leave for another job, or
Yep.
they're burnt out or whatever it is, and it's
Yep.
like, damn,
Yep.
identifying the right people
Yep.
is a skill in and of itself.
And rewarding them too, give them bonuses, give them raises. It's that positive encouragement while still coaching them on what they can do better, or because nobody's perfect. Like, I still need coaching. I still need help.
Yeah.
Same with you, same with everybody. So I think it's just looking at those people that will take that feedback and learn from it.
So how does that compare, I guess, your ability to identify candidates and develop them in a kitchen environment, a single location kitchen environment, like when you were running the kitchen at Sidewinders, translate to your current capacity in multi-location, market-wide development of people? It's not just in kitchens anymore.
I think it's Sidewinders was a good one to do because we had a whole like prep team downstairs, so they were kind of isolated from the line cooks. You had day shifts, night shifts, you had dishwashers, and so able to kind of manage each individual like department kind of helped, because I would always go downstairs and if I had to do prep, I did prep. But it's working with those people on how's the prep list look today, how's the staffing looking today, what are the cleaning projects today. How are like of these other people that I can't invest all my time in because I'm on the line, how are these people doing? And then leaning on those people, the prep leads we had. And then it's identifying the daytime people to nighttime people. Like, who are the people that I was very hands-on, but almost managing different departments. Like, definitely lunch shift isn't as busy as night shift, but day shift has a lot of things they can do to help get night shift ready, like all the extra green onions and parsley and stocking that they do help set up nighttime. And the nighttime will, their job, usually daytime is opening everything, getting it set up, things like that. Nighttime's differential is the cleaning aspect of stuff at the end of the night, and then also setting up the daytime people so that if somebody is sick or somebody's running late, they aren't so in the weeds, because there's nothing worse than, oh my god, my station's empty and I have 80 million things to do. We open in 2 hours.
So those were like systems or practices that you put in place
Yep.
when you were the guy
Yep.
at Sidewinders,
Yep.
right? Like you were kind of the top of the food chain
Yep.
in terms of like back house leadership
Yep.
at that restaurant. Your capacity now has scaled up. Your scope of leadership is much
Yep.
larger than it was at that time. So is there any like success stories or like things that you're proud of in terms of, you know, the team that you developed at that time now being able to, because now you're responsible for four
Yeah.
restaurants, right? And not just one. And um, I guess like, yeah, does anything stand out to you as like, oh, it's pretty cool to see, you know, so and so continuing on in this practice that I kind of like learned and
Um,
developed over time?
you know, Sidewinders, you look at Carissa, Joel, West. Joel has been there. He was even there before I was.
Hmm.
You see his development. You see Carissa's development and wanting to do more and wanting to learn more. Things like that for the current people we have. We have Anna that, like I said, started as a dishwasher, worked her way as a line cook, became a lead closer, and she really had a good talent at identifying, like she's really good at the little things of details of making sure closing goes well. And now she's over at Tanglewood as one of our, kitchen managers over here. And then, you work with someone like Chris, but, his development and how good he's got at the ordering and the prep and all those kind of things. Has been impactful. We have some people that did pretty well for a while. You look at the Garretts, the Adam Halls, Brandon Millers, those kind of people that did well for a while, but just weren't really you know I don't know want to say invested, but the management aspect of stuff and the
Yeah, I mean,
yeah
for different people, there's
yep
different variables that, you know, for whatever reason end
yep
up, you know, taking priority over their, you know, commitment
yep
to, you know, that working in that capacity or leading or
yep
whatever, you know, whatever it is. But I think that, you know, really, if you kind of zoom out and look at that, I mean, that's successful leadership. Like
yep
you got multiple people on your team truly steered towards, you know, working on a common goal,
yeah
whether it's, you know, now Anna at Tanglewood or Chris in Tanglewood
yep
or Sean at Hachi or Carissa and Sidewinders and Joel and Wes. And, you know, you've basically had these people that have, you know, really bought into a lot of, you know, systems that you developed. And now like you've expanded your reach. You are now making an impact through half a dozen other people who are operating similarly, if not, you know, in line, totally in line with the way that you did it
yeah
when you were in their position. I mean, that's really cool. It's, like I said, that's, I mean, the product of successful and effective leadership.
Systems work, man. Like if you look at just an entity of Sidewinders prep and how much food they have to make, and just the different people that have gone in and out of there as like a prep leader, a prep
Hmm.
manager. It's we went started from the Kendall and Keeley or Wendell and Keeley days
Hmm.
to Logan and Richard now, and so systems work. Like there's very very rarely any time where it's like, oh my god, we have to 86 this because
Right.
we're out or we're behind, or oh my god, like this was bad, or and I mean the volume they do over there is
Yeah.
insane.
We talk about like the difference or, you know, performance being a sum of systems and talent. And I think that that can maybe be misconstrued a little bit.
Yeah,
Like, oh, well, if it's all about systems, then it's a personal. It's
yeah,
like, well, then yeah, I mean, your goal is that anybody can plug in and like run that system, but it's always going to have some personal
yeah,
aspect to it. And I think the product there is if you can get those people like yourself bought into the systems based management,
yeah,
then it benefits them in the long run. Like your ability to work in this capacity and succeed now with a much larger scope, better income,
yeah.
more responsibility, more fulfillment wouldn't have been possible if you didn't have the systems in place to allow others to come in and start upholding those responsibilities, right?
I mean, it's like sports. It's, they always say it's like, is it the X's and O's or is it the Jimmy and the Joes? But it's really both. If you think about it, like,
Mm-hmm.
look at the Patriots.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick's one of the smartest ever, but he loses Tom Brady and he hasn't won a Super Bowl. So you kind of need everything to work out. But it's, the thing I like about this company is it does start with the people and taking care of your people
Mm-hmm.
and letting them grow and develop and learn.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what for you personally over, you know, 10 years of doing it now, like speak to that a little bit. Like, I mean, how has your life experience changed? I'm not, you know,
Yeah.
trying to, to steer it for you whatsoever, but I mean, yeah, just, I guess talk honestly about, you know, the work experience and how this has impacted your life.
It's definitely given me that sense of direction I think I needed. Like I said, who knows what I'd be doing now if I wasn't in this company. I probably would be a sales rep for Cisco or US Food just because I probably would have got tired working like in the kitchen
Mm-hmm.
because I'm 36, almost 37. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I have a very good life. I have really no complaints. I can't, especially in this company. This company allows me, vacation. This company allows, freedom of schedule and, the flexibility and ability to do what I think is right because of what the things that, Joe, all you guys have taught me and kind of steered me in that direction. Yeah.
How do you think you're involved in like now passing that, or trying to expand that impact to others, like in terms of quality of life and trying to make things better than it was 10 years ago when you first started?
Maybe it's just a sense of fulfillment for other people, that they're doing a good job. Trying to coach them up the right way. When I have a good shift and things go well, it's just seeing that, sense of accomplishment from people on doing a good job.
Like when you think about the concept of service,
Yep.
a lot of people, that means different things to
Yeah.
different people, and it means
Widespread.
different things to an individual over the course of his or her life too.
Yep.
Right? Like serving 10 years ago meant something different to me and you than it does now.
Yep.
So what does it mean to you today?
Um, you want to take care of the customers because the one, putting their money, you know, our service to them is to make sure they're having a great dining experience,
Mm-hmm.
great food, and a great overall experience. And I think the best way to take care of that is a trickle down effect. If managers are getting taken care of, they're going to take care of their staff, and the staff is positive and happy and loving coming to work, they're going to take care of the guests. And I think it just trickles down, and then so to me, like, it's a very wide spectrum. But I believe if you take care of your staff, you take care of your key people, it all trickles down to the final. If you think about the whole start point, you know, everything trickles down to as soon as the customer walks in, but there's a lot of stuff before that happens. And so everyone's set up, everyone's working hard, everyone's positive, everyone's happy. It shows. And it just trickles all the way down to that whole guest experience of having a great experience, leaving and knowing they're going to come back because it's all about repeat customers.
What are you doing like day to day to take care of your people? I mean, that's what you're saying. You said that's kind of what service is to you at this point in your life, in your career, like just making sure you're taking care of your people and so that trickles down to the customer. But like, what does that really mean?
Making sure staff, as soon as that they're taking, they feel supported, that they feel not everyone's always going to feel excited to come into work every day, but the fact is when they come in, do they feel accomplished? Do they feel safe? Do they feel like they have the tools they need to have a good shift? Or are they constantly behind? Are they constantly short staffed? Are they constantly running around? Is it a good work environment for people and giving them the tools they need, whether it's through hands-on or just advice, checking in on them, or do you set up for the day to have a good work experience, which then should take care of the guests?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not to, inflate your ego any more than.
I need more of that.
No, I'm just kidding. You have no ego.
I don't like positive encouragement.
But, we talked about that this morning. We had a leadership team meeting and how, your ability to plug in on the line at any restaurant at any time is exactly what, because, and I'm not limiting your impact to the back of the house, but that's your background. That's where you have a unique level of credibility and skill relative to the rest of us.
Yep.
And your ability to jump on the line, and I read this all the time in our mod reports, Alex, thank God for Alex saving the day, jumping on the line and helping us through the rush or whatever, whether that's rolling sushi, cook and saute, working the grill, running wheel, whatever it is. Like your ability to do that is super important. And for what we do in restaurants, I mean, shit, 70 whatever percent of our sales are food. Like
Yeah.
we need people that can jump into a production zone, kick ass and take names and lead through the storm. And uh, you can absolutely do that. And I think that we're seeing the impact of you teaching others how to do that and the value of being able to do that among their team.
I mean, I don't know. In my experience, there's nothing more deflating for a line cook than getting your ass kicked, whether you're short staffed or, it's super busy or, whatever variable is like, oh, we're out of this or that, and nobody being able to help. There's no more lonely, deflated, this sucks than that. So being able to you know, jump in where need be or move things around to help, I think goes a long way, whatever capacity that is.
Yeah, man. I mean, shout out to you. And I, like I said, it hasn't stopped in the back of the house. Like you didn't allow that line between the back of the house and the front of the house to stop you as a leader. You took the initiative. You got out of your comfort zone. You worked into the front of the house. You can make lattes at Foxtrot as much as you can roll sushi at Hachi or cook steaks at Tanglewood.
Well, I
That's
think
pretty
something you
cool.
did that helped me was there was a manager at one of the restaurants that, went to you to complain about, well, why is Alex checking my front of the house schedule or telling me I need to adjust or cut back? And you kind of made the point like, Alex is going to go where he needs to go. So if he's telling you this, he's telling you for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of helped me, made me feel more empowered to not just only focus on the back or things like that. It's just, whatever needs to get fixed, it needs to get fixed.
Well, I mean, yeah, we couldn't do it without you. I mean, I know I've told you that before, and you know that, but the impact that you make here is huge. I think that you see that in the loyalty and relationships that you have with so many of our team members. Joe and I talked about it after the Christmas party and seeing how, people love working with you.
Yeah.
And
Christmas party is a little hazy for me.
for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
But no, but people,
Party Alex comes out once a year.
people love working with you, and it's not because you take it easy on them and you're their best friend. I mean, that's the power of successful, effective leadership is that you aren't always the nice guy.
No.
You're a hard ass a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But yet, when it comes to time for a Christmas party, like you're the guy that everybody wants to hang out with and be friends with and party with. And yeah, I mean, that's really, really hard to do.
I think,
so shout out to you.
One thing for people is managing people is knowing when people need a pat on the back or a kick in the ass. People are different, but you just got to, but that through relationships, we can look at that leadership pyramid, but all that shit makes sense. So.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I know we're, running into
no Joe
lunchtime
Rogan
here.
Podcast, so
yeah. But we'll definitely do it again and keep talking more about a lot of this stuff. But, I think this has been awesome to hear. I learned a lot. I mean, I've known you for 10 years and I didn't know all of that about your background
person.
And stuff. And yeah, I mean, I think really one of the big goals here for us as a company, among our team and stuff is that people, like you're setting a great example for people, and this story, your background, your history is a prime example of how somebody can start off, working the cashier at McDonald's, to joining and becoming part of Blue Collar 10 years ago and really helping steer this organization to where it is today.
Yeah.
And now proving to others that they can absolutely do that same thing. It requires hard work. It requires initiative and loyalty and all the things that you represent and that you have helped make such an important part of what we do, in this business and among our culture.
I think a big thing too is just never being satisfied. It's working in kitchens, and for chefs, it's like, okay, you made that dish, but how can you make it better? And never, Joe always says that, never take your pack off and just, let your guard down and things like that. So I think it's just always finding, I still either try to read books or watch YouTube videos on leadership and things like that, just to keep, finding new ways and, stuff like that. But I do want to give a big shout out to Joe, Denise, you, Ellie, Brooke, Nicole. Like, I couldn't do this if I didn't have you guys, giving me the opportunity to do it. And to the whole staff, the management team, and everybody that works for us. I do really believe, as corny as it is, that everybody can make a difference, and everybody,
Yeah.
all that's
I mean,
shit.
like I said, like you're living proof of that. It goes both ways. I mean, we all depend on each other to get to where we're at.
Yeah.
This restaurant where we're sitting today wouldn't be here if it weren't for the success we've had at Sidewinders.
Yep.
We would have never been successful at Sidewinders if you hadn't have been, part of that team in
Yep.
the early days. And, and so we just kind of, leverage each other, find those
Yep.
synergies, and, build off of each other's ideas to try to, do the right thing and steer this community in the right direction. And I mean, our internal community at Blue Collar, but also, impacting our greater, communities in Bozeman and Jackson
Yep.
the right way. And, trying to set an example as an employer and, providing, even in the industry, right? Like doing unique, creative, standout things in the restaurant industry to try to, steer things in the right direction. So, just thankful, to be working alongside you and both being part of that progression. So,
Yeah. Well, appreciate it. Thank you guys.
yeah, I'm sure, a lot of people are probably, you touched on, a lot of the challenges and how you work through all that stuff. And I think, maybe for the next conversation, we could dive into some of the details of that, because there's a lot of people. We have so many great people in the company today,
Yeah.
who absolutely have the capability and the potential to succeed like you have or like I have.
Yep.
And we want to try to, line those things out for people about as much as possible and educate them on, not that we have all the answers, but, learn from our mistakes. And if there are ways that we can, help other people
Grow to their
succeed and
potential
grow,
Yep.
then that's mutually beneficial.
Yep.
And I think, I can't speak for everybody, but I think there are a lot of people that look up to you and would love to learn, through the mechanisms through which you have found success
Yeah.
over the years. So look forward to maybe having that conversation with you too.
Yeah.
So TBD, we'll have to schedule that one in the future. Maybe like episode 10.
Copy.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Service First podcast. Join us on our mission to spread the word and inspire others to lead with a service first mindset by sharing this episode with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Service First podcast on your favorite platform. We can't wait to connect with you and continue this important conversation about service, community, and leadership.